Hello and welcome to episode 89 of the Rollo and Slappy Show. Today is April 30th, 2018. I am Rollo McFlugel, and with me is Slappy Jones 2, and we are both of McFlugel.com. The show notes page for this episode is McFlugel.com/89. You'll be able to find links to things we talk about, as well as ways to follow us on social media, and some other cool stuff, like our sponsor, LibertyMugs.com, where we just posted a new mug today that says, "Public school teachers are overpaid." So I think that's a great thing to bring to parent-teacher night, where maybe if you have some in-laws over and one of them is a public school teacher, that's the one that you serve them coffee in. It's a good conversation starter.
Yeah, it sure is. Maybe we should switch gears and talk about that. But anyway, I'll let you finish the introduction before I cut you off.
Yeah, well, that is a good one to talk about, but that's kind of an evergreen one. But we want to talk about something a little more relevant today, or relevant to something that just happened. So I'm going to hand it over to Slappy, and he's going to introduce our episode.
Thank you, Rollo. I'm Slappy Jones. Welcome to the Rollo and Slappy Show. So today we're going to talk about a tweet from Il Papa, the Pope Francis. Tweeted this yesterday. Today is April 30th, as Rollo said. So this was yesterday. He sent out a tweet that said, "Do we really want peace? Then let's ban all weapons so we don't have to live in fear of war." Yeah. So, Rollo, initial thoughts on that. Will banning all weapons allow us to live without fear of war?
No, it would do quite the opposite. It would put a...
Wait. He said ban them.
Right, so they all just go away magically.
Yeah, disintegrate, I guess. So, who would have the weapons?
So
we ban them?
This reminds me of Adam Kokesh did one of the Man on the Street things. This was a couple years ago, where he went to an anti-gun rally. It was like Moms Against Guns or something. I don't know. And he's got a megaphone, I think. And so he's talking on that, and there's just these people completely surrounding him, chanting at him with signs. So ban guns. And he goes, "What are you going to use to take my guns away from me?" And he's like, "Chants?" And they didn't get it. And I don't think that Pope Francis gets it either. You don't just ban guns. You write it down as law. Thou shalt not have guns. And now no one has guns.
Well, the question is, does he know what he's saying? Because if he does, I think that's really scary.
Right.
So saying he doesn't is really giving him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he said a lot of other stuff that's in the past, and we have links to it in the show notes page. Saying that people, should have pensions and other critiques of libertarianism and markets. And we know that his history and his past, his socialist roots. So I don't know. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because one, we can still shred his argument, even if it's not nefarious what he's trying to do. But I think a lot of people do that. They never make the connection between the state decreeing something and the guns that back up that decree. So,
now, a question for you, because I know that you have read Hans Hermann Hoppe. Is that what he's saying when he says monarchy would be preferable to democracy? Because in a democracy, people have some kind of feeling like they're part of it, whereas a monarchy, it's kind of like, well, this king's over there and screw him because he was just born to the right guy.
Right.
Am I off there, or is that?
That's one of the points he makes.
Okay. Because I think that's a real issue when with democracy, is that everyone wants government to solve every problem. Right. You actually have kids in the school down in Florida while the shooting's happening on their phones saying we need government to do something.
Yeah. But what's ironic about his statement is that if we were to ban all weapons, or the governments were to ban all weapons, that would not that would bring the opposite of peace and would bring the opposite of not having to live in fear of war, because that would mean there's constant warfare
Yeah,
on
who is
people.
starting these wars?
But it's a constant warfare between the government and its subjects. Because if you're
But
not allowed to have something, and they're always ready to kind of obliterate you and point their guns at you and shoot you if you violate their law, how is that not a state of war?
right, but even today, I mean, I didn't bomb Syria.
Right.
Like, no, neither did any other civilian.
Yeah.
So unless I mean, could we read into it that he wants governments to ban their own weapons, like, and no one will create a weapon on their own? I mean, it's just
Yeah,
such
it's kind of ambiguous what he means. Is he talking about citizen? I'm sure he wouldn't
I don't
mind
know
if-
what he's talking about, because citizens aren't the ones waging war in the sense of war we always.
But let's talk about. I
No.
mean, and the Catholic Church in its history has spoken out against nuclear weapons, which I think is a good thing. I think that's a lot different than saying ban all weapons. Because, like, I mean, look what happens when there's an attempt to enforce a nuclear weapons ban. Well, when countries try to enforce a nuclear weapons ban, when the United States tries to do it, when Israel does it, it's always through the threat of war. So I guess their idea behind it is, well, better a conventional war than a nuclear war, which I think is kind of is pretty warped way of thinking about it, because that's not the only alternative. There are other alternatives than fighting a conventional war.
Speaking of which, just now I'm seeing this, and I don't know if you heard this. I know Netanyahu was going to do a speech today, and I guess he did it. He says he has proof that Iran is lying and they have nukes or something like that.
Yep, and that's why they were
Yeah,
sending fighter jets last night
yeah.
through Iran or something. So when you have governments and when I was saying that the Vatican had spoken out against nuclear weapons, I don't necessarily, I don't know the full details of it, but I think there's nothing wrong with giving a general statement like there should be disarmaments, as opposed to saying, some government should enforce a ban on nuclear weapons, because it just gives an excuse for fighting a war, which we see now is what's happening with Israel and Iran. It's just an excuse for another war, because they've been chomping at the bit to go after Iran for
Forever.
years and years.
Yeah.
So it just makes for a convenient excuse. So we were talking about this before we started recording. It's not directly related to this, but tangentially. What's so frustrating about Pope Francis when he says stuff like this is that he's clearly not speaking of church doctrine. So, and I think a lot of people don't understand papal infallibility, that it's invoked in extremely rare circumstances, like unbelievably extreme. But a lot of people think that whenever the Pope says something that, like, you have to believe it or listen to it or agree to it. For something like this, he's just a guy on Twitter, basically, giving an opinion. So you're free to agree or disagree, argue with it.
In fact, I believe in the last time a pope spoke infallibly was in the 1950s, and that's been the first time in like 200 years.
Right.
So it's not like everything the guy says is infallible,
Mm-hmm.
or is believed to be infallible, or whatever.
But
so I just want to throw that out there, because we hear that all the time as
Yeah.
Catholics. So you think this guy's infallible? Well, no, most popes never speak infallibly. So
Right. I forgot what I was going to say.
yeah, sorry for that.
I know what I want to say, and it's about tractors. So
Yeah, you got
I
it
can
in.
always just kind of
Well,
just
you were
fall
talking
back on
about
that.
you were talking about him speaking in. I guess what maybe we could say is
Oh,
that he doesn't know what he's talking about.
that's what I wanted to say. So, yeah, he's allowed to give his opinion on things, but and not he knows he's not speaking on and with infallibility, and he's not claiming to it, so there's no problem there. But at the same time, he's an extremely influential person, perhaps, especially on moral issues, the most influential person in the world, just by the merit that he's the Pope. That carries a lot of weight with a lot of people, regardless of what religion they are. So, with that, I think you've got to kind of treat it with some degree of responsibility. And when you don't know what you're talking about, maybe keep your mouth shut a little bit.
Be cognizant of that.
And I know he doesn't think he does. Like who sits there and talks and says, "I actually don't know what I'm talking about. We're gonna just spew this out anyway." But
Well, it's
just
funny because if you're talking to someone who doesn't watch basketball, and you say, "What'd you think of the Sixers play at the end of the game last night?" The guy will be like, "I don't know. I didn't watch it." And if I did watch it, I wouldn't know what to think of it. They missed the shot. I guess it's bad. People don't have a problem saying they don't know certain things, but when it comes to serious things, everybody thinks they have all the answers.
right. And so, yeah, it's frustrating with this Pope that he's got the socialist bent that we were talking about earlier, and so that's what he talks about. But it's just, man, between the economics and now the moral issues with his proposal to ban weapons, I mean, it's so I don't understand because he's not a dumb guy. You can't get all the way to being Pope by being
And be
ignorant
dumb. Yeah.
about this kind of or just being dumb or ignorant. Like it really bugs me. It really bugs me about this Pope that he's this outspoken about things that clearly go against more obvious Catholic Christian moral teachings. So like the socialism thing. All right, well, what does socialism require? It requires walking around with guns to take money from people to give it to other people, even if you think that
I thought it meant sharing,
yeah,
not being greedy.
even if you think that distributing wealth is good. I mean, ask any Catholic, does the end justify the means? I mean, it should be drilled into their heads that no, that's not that's not what
Not how
the
it
church
works.
teaches. That you can, as long as as you think that the outcome is going to be okay, you can do whatever you want. So it bothers me tremendously as a Catholic that the Pope is putting political ideology before Catholic teaching, basic Christian teaching, basic human dignity, decency. That don't stick a gun to someone's head to get them to act the way you want them to, especially when it has to do with putting money.
And that's of course the whole irony there is ban guns so we don't have violence. Like you said, how are you going to ban guns?
Yeah, it's just magic.
Yeah, they just disappear, and then no one will ever have them. No one will make one. No one will do anything. You'll be able to control every person on the planet, and you'll be able to do it by telling them not to, or something. It's just it's a stupid fantasy.
Right. And if the Pope tweeted out something like, I think we'd live in a more peaceful world if people stopped using weapons.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't. We would not be having a podcast episode about the tweet if that's what he tweeted, because it'd be like, all right, well, yeah. I mean, I guess it kind of makes some sense to say, if there's, it would help. I mean, if you can't pick up a gun, that means you can't shoot anyone. So
Yeah. In fact, I would say I'd be in favor of all weapons being, I don't know, disintegrated from the planet and never being created again. I think that'd be a much better place. Maybe.
yeah,
I don't know.
perhaps.
But, perhaps it would be that you don't have these weapons that will hurt people and kill people, and maybe we'll figure out ways to get along. But the fact is, they do exist, and they're not going anywhere.
Right, and they
So we
exist
shouldn't
for
ban.
they exist for very good reason too.
Oh, of course. No, I'm not. Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
I know
For
you know
sure.
that.
Yeah, I'm just throw. I mean, that obviously is I would never, just to be clear here, would not be in favor of any steps to get rid of weapons. It's just a fantasy. It's a stupid fantasy, but it's a fantasy that is not possible.
Right. So what I'm hearing from you is that you say that the government should take everyone's weapons.
Yeah, that's pretty much sums it up.
Okay. Good.
So we're on the record there. It's clear.
So this is also, I mean, we could tie this into, I mean, look at what's happening in Britain, where you see like some of these police departments posting pictures of weapon seizures that they did. And they're literally multi-tools sometimes, or screwdrivers.
Yeah, I saw
It's-
a nail gun and a screwdriver and
There's literally one was a multi-tool.
yeah.
And other things like I forget what it was like a kitchen knife or something. And it's like, you would think that it's like, I don't know, maybe the Onion's running elaborate, hoax accounts or spoof accounts of the British police and just making fun of. But it's like this stuff, I would have bet money that it was satire with what they're, patting themselves in the back and posting on Twitter showing what they're collecting. So what is a weapon? How far do you take this? And that's the other thing. It's
Is a fist a weapon?
Yeah. I mean, rocks, sticks. You can. I mean, basically you can fashion almost anything into a weapon. Not even fashion it. Just pick it up and use it as a weapon. If you're,
Very true.
Yeah.
We don't see a lot of rock attacks though, but I'll bet if you somehow could get rid of guns and knives, you might start seeing some rock attacks.
Well, I mean, look what's happening in Britain, where they don't really have guns over there, and they have a huge knife problem.
I don't know. I don't know this answer, but do you know what the murder rate is over there since before and after a gun ban?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I have no idea.
I mean, I don't know that they ever really had guns as a big part of their. I don't know if they really had guns to begin with anyway. So it's.
Which this actually goes in hand with what we're talking about. People not knowing what they're talking about. We're okay with saying we don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot that goes on besides just the actual presence of a gun.
Yeah. So, and then you tie that, you take that a step further, and we saw what happened with the Alfie Evans case. That happened where the British government, for those of you who don't know this story, there's a baby that had some disease that I don't even think that they could identify what the condition was. But the British Department of Health or whatever they call it over there,
NHS Health Service or something.
they kind of just gave up, and they said, well, we just kind of got to pull the plug on the ventilator on him. We decided that there's nothing more that we can do for him, so we're pulling the plug and he's going to die. And the parents are like, well, we'd like to keep him alive. And I think it was in Italy. There was a hospital that said that they would take him in and keep him alive, and the parents are like, yeah, let's take him there. And the British government said, no, we're not going to let you do that. They basically
Kidnapped him. Starved him to death, too.
Held the baby hostage in the hospital and did not even let the parents take him out to do, what they thought was best for him. And they lined the hospital with police to not let anyone go in. So that's what happens when you don't have any weapons. That's one of the things that happens.
Certainly.
I mean, they what are they going to do? Throw rocks at the police or something? Like we were saying? I mean, they don't really have much options over there. But, I mean, is that kind of the world that the Pope Francis wants? Because he spoke out against what was going on over there.
He did.
But you can't look at things in vacuums. You can't compartmentalize and say, oh, this is a completely separate issue from this. You got to look at it holistically and understand that this is the kind of thing that can happen when you've got nothing. I mean, if this happened in the U.S., I mean, we've seen militias come to defense of people in the U.S.
Even recently,
Yeah,
was
that
it out in Oregon or
yeah.
where was that?
I forget.
Bundy Ranch? I
Yeah.
forget.
But it's a much different story due to the fact that there are people who are pretty well armed will come and just be there to make it known that, all right, well, you guys got big guns, but we've got big guns over here too, and because of that, you're not going to just be able to do whatever you want. That doesn't happen in Britain.
Right.
So the government's able to just murder your kid with impunity.
Literally, that's what happened.
Yeah. So.
And then there's people defending it somehow.
Oh, if I'm.
I want what's best for the kid. Well, that's not your decision.
Right. It's not this Alfie Evans thing was. The question was not whether or not he should be taken off life support. I mean, you can have that debate. You can have that argument.
It's a separate argument from this.
But this was an issue of who has, because obviously
who makes the decision.
Yeah, he's a baby. He can't talk. He's not
he doesn't
really
have
conscious.
the last will and testament.
Right.
I mean,
he can't make decisions on him for himself. So who's best equipped to make decisions on his behalf? The government or his parents? I think the answer should be pretty obvious. And we see what happens when the government, who controls the health system, gets to make that decision. They're going to take the utilitarian approach.
Exactly. And that's a real problem. Because they're going to take the utilitarian approach, which is what they think is best.
Right.
It's not even necessarily what's best for everyone. It's what they decide is best for everyone.
Yeah. And it's just, even if they, I mean,
but
it's so sick.
It is sick.
The fact that they just, on top of that, all right, they make their ruling, as nasty and disgusting as their ruling is, they double down and don't let the parents take the kid elsewhere.
I would get it.
Unconscionable.
Right. I would get it if they said, we're not going to continue to treat the baby. And then they said, all right, well, we're going to take the baby to Italy where they will treat the baby. And they say, okay.
Yeah. They'll just be like, all right, well, we're done. We're washing our hands of this. You're on your own.
Yeah. If it dies in transport, that's on you. I mean, well,
Right.
But they wouldn't even allow them to take the baby out. They wouldn't even allow them to see the baby.
It's
pretty sick. And you remember Sarah Palin and her death panels and the way the mainstream media and Saturday Night Live treated that.
Mm-hmm.
All the joking about, we're not going to have that. It's going to be free healthcare for everybody. And this is what happens when it goes into practice. And who knows how often this happens. This was a big story, I guess. Do you know why it was a big story?
I don't know.
I don't either. I mean, were the parents
not
giving in? I imagine this isn't the first time this has happened.
Yeah, I don't know. I know it was a story a few months ago, and then it kind of died down, and then more recently it came back up, I guess, because it was rattling around in the
coming
courts.
Down to the end, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's disgusting and it's terrible, and I just wish that there was a little bit better awareness of everything that's going on by people, especially the Pope, to be able to, maybe put two and two together instead of just being blinded by your political ideology. I mean, what does he view as more valuable, his Catholicism or his socialism?
That's a very good question.
So, I don't know. I mean, it's important for people to, especially Catholics, that if you disagree with the Pope, don't think you have to accept it. Don't think you have to just be quiet and Don't think that you're being a bad Catholic by speaking out.
Yeah,
It's
and
important. It's
actually,
extremely important to question. It doesn't mean you have to, in general, in general, for whether you're a Catholic or for anything. If you're being told to do something or being told something is the correct thing to do or something, it is extremely important that you question it. It doesn't mean that you have to decide that you're against it, but you shouldn't just blindly do something, especially something as serious as, disarming the entire people of the world, whoever Francis is talking about. So that's all I had about this.
yeah, I have nothing to add other than that. The more I learn about the Catholic Church, which is kind of funny because I've been a Catholic my whole life, but the more you realize how much debate goes on and how much actual thinking goes on. And I know that's to people who aren't Catholics, that isn't probably the reputation, but even to people who are Catholics, I don't know how many of them actually dig into the faith. But there's a lot of smart people involved and a lot of questioning and a lot of thinking, a lot of debating. And it's okay to disagree with the Pope.
Oh, yeah. I
So
agree.
just wanted to throw that in.
Yep. All right. So do you have a free market success story?
Sure, I can. Um, so I'll talk a little bit about life insurance. Why not? I'm in the business. Um, just this past weekend, I took a insurance law test, which I passed. But one thing I thought was interesting in the textbook is that it is pretty well known. I mean, if you've ever bought a life insurance policy, you should have been told this. These policies have an incontestable clause, and it's a provision in the policy that says after 2 years they will no longer contest the validity of the contract. That's usually 2 years. So even if there was fraud or a misstatement of representations during the application process, the life insurance company will not contest the validity of the contract after 2 years. Basically, they have 2 years to contest that you're lying. There are certain other ways. I mean, if you had someone else take your exam, or there's a couple other ways that they can still, if you took the policy out to murder the person, or someone else took your medical exam, something like that, that makes the contract invalid and all the premiums would be returned. But I'm getting into the details too much. Basically, after 2 years, the insurance company will no longer contest any misstatements of fact or fraud involved. And what's interesting about this clause and why I bring it up, and this is in the textbook, this clause was adopted voluntarily before it was ever a law by the insurance companies. And the reason they did that was there was some competitive pressure in the market, and they wanted to overcome prejudices against the life insurance carriers contesting contracts based on technicalities. So there's probably a few instances of that happening where a guy's been paying his life insurance premium for 10 years and he dies, and then when they go to pay the claim, they say, oh, wait a second, you told me you were a non-smoker and now you're a smoker, or it turns out you actually were a smoker, so this was not a valid claim. So there's a lot of pressure in the market, so they voluntarily adopted this intestable clause to say after 2 years they will no longer contest any fraud or misstatements of representations in the policy, to give confidence to the market. And so, I bring that up as a free market story because whenever I talk about insurance companies helping to regulate the market when they're in the absence of government, people will inevitably say, well, they just care about your money. They don't care. Well, sure, they want to make a profit, but they also want your business. So they're going to do things like develop an incontestable clause so that people will have confidence that if they take out a policy, they'll get paid a claim. And so I thought that was really interesting that that happened voluntarily before there was ever a law to do it. And on that life insurance topic, we're even though they are highly regulated, the policies, a recent development or a new product in the market came out where you buy the policy and the company will either give you a free Fitbit or Apple Watch, and you track your steps, your activities, stuff like that. And your premium will change based on your lifestyle. On seeing the doctor, you get points. On walking, you get points. And so it incentivizes you to be healthy, because the insurance company, a life insurance company, certainly wants you to live long. They don't want to take 1 year of premium and then pay out a claim. They want you to live as long as possible. And so they provide the incentive for you to live longer and stay healthier. And they do that. They reward you by lowering your rates as you stay healthy, as you do these things, hit certain number of steps, see your doctor every year, buy healthy food. And that's a relatively recent development in the market. And so I thought that was just some more evidence to how insurance companies will encourage good behavior. And people can choose whether or not they want to live a certain lifestyle and just pay the difference in premium. If you choose to sit on your couch all day and eat pizza and potato chips, and you can do that, but you're going to pay more for your life insurance. And so just an interesting development in the market. They were not forced to do this. In fact, they want to do it, and they're marketing the heck out of it because they want people who want to be healthy to be insured. So I thought that was very interesting and a success of the free market.
I like it.
So there you go.
So remember, show notes page for this episode is mcflugel.com/89. We'll have links to the tweet that Pope Francis sent out, as well as a couple articles we wrote at mcflugel.com related to things we disagree with the Pope on. And also, Tom Woods on his show recently had an episode talking about the Pope. So that'd be a good thing to listen to if you're not already listening.
Pope. Yeah.
Also, again, libertymugs.com. And follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. And we link to some of our other friends' podcasts and what they're working on. So we got Mance Raider, Free Man Beyond the Wall. We've got the Friends Against Government podcast, and also, last but not least, Jeremiah Harding. He does, 80 million things. I don't know how I don't think he sleeps.
How he does it.
I don't think he sleeps.
Probably not. But hey, if you're listening on wherever you're listening, go and rate us 5 stars if you like it.
Oh, yeah, that's important for helping us go and search results and everything. So, yeah, Stitcher, iTunes, Podbean, whatever other service you use. So, actually, I accidentally found us on this, last.fm or something. We are considered one of the top ANCAP podcasts, according to them.
Obviously.
Yeah. Take that, car and bird.
Yeah. Take that.
All right. So, we'll catch you next week. Thanks for listening.